Welcome back to BST, everybody. I hope you're all having a wonderful Thursday morning. Thanks for joining me on this episode. And today I would like to talk about the NFL, catch up a little bit. We haven't made an NFL episode since the Super Bowl. Um, so I wanted to talk about the coaches, free agency, trade rumors, all that kind of stuff, all the stuff that's kind of gone down in between now and the Super Bowl. So let's just get right into it with the coaches. No particular order here. I'm just going to start with the Chicago Bears hire Ben Johnson. I think this is the best hire of the period. I Ben Johnson's outstanding play caller. I think it's going to be a great pairing with Caleb. See if he can certainly improve on the year he had last year. And it's gonna be interesting how it plays out. But I think the biggest thing here is can Ryan Poles build a roster for Ben Johnson to use? I think that's a bigger piece of this puzzle than Ben Johnson, because here's the thing. Ben Johnson, although he was great with the Lions, I think a majority of his success goes to the roster that the Lions built. If you think about that offense, they had a deep threat, Jameson Williams, possession guy in Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, absolutely great tight end, two great running backs in Gibbs and Montgomery, Goff, who could facilitate the game, and just an elite pass blocking and run blocking offensive line. You don't have those things in Chicago. You have good receivers. You have a good tight end. You have a decent running back. You have a quarterback who hasn't proven much yet. And you have a pretty weak offensive line. So I'm not saying he won't have success. I'm just saying I think a bigger piece of this puzzle is if Ryan Poles this offseason can build an offensive line to help out Ben Johnson and Caleb. Because it's just not gonna work out if they don't have an offensive line that can protect Caleb, even just marginally better than they did last year. But some of that falls on Caleb. Don't take as many sacks. He's gonna have to play much more like Jared Goff, and keep the playmaking an extension of his game. You facilitate. Oh, nothing's open. Let me scramble. Let's not. Oh, we scramble immediately. So I think that's a bigger piece of this puzzle, but I think it's a great, great, great hire and something they needed to, please the fans at the very least, because the fans have been fed up with, these stupid hires where they hire some random guy who's nobody's going after, and they say he's gonna be a culture builder, and then he's out in 2 years. But again, the roster has not been good for a while, so this is on Ryan Poles now. The pressure is all on Ryan Poles to build a roster for success. Moving on. The Raiders. They hire Pete Carroll. I think this is an outstanding hire. Because I think if they would have hired Ben Johnson, it'd have been good, no doubt. It'd have been good. But they just don't have they are multiple off seasons away from having the same, and even just a competent offense right now, because obviously they may get a quarterback in this draft. I'm not sold by any quarterback in this draft, so that's kind of a thing. Are you really going to pay for Sam Darnold in free agency? I don't know about that. And if you get Stafford or Rodgers, I don't know. I'm not sold by any quarterback this offseason, so I think this is a great hire. Yeah, I think first and foremost, the most important thing in coaching is building a culture, and I think that's what Pete Carroll's going to do. And they're not going to win next year. They may not win the year after, but at the very least, I think they'll show progress. They'll be in every game. They'll fight. They'll be a competent, well-coached, disciplined football team. And I think at the end of the day, their struggles won't come from being stupid. It'll come from not having a competent roster at this point. So, but I like a lot of their pieces. I like Brock Bowers a ton. I like a lot of pieces that they have, but it's just going to be interesting to see how they can improve next year with Pete Carroll. But I really like the hire. He's won every year, everywhere he's gone. So I really like this hire, and I think This will be good for the future of the Raiders. Moving on, New England. This is such a New England hire. It feels like they're still trying to chase the Belichick, the new Belichick, and with Mike Vrabel now, same kind of guy. But obviously, Vrabel is proven in the NFL that he can win, even with not a great quarterback in Tannehill. So I like this hire because I mean it feels right. But again, it feels like they're kind of chasing the same guy over and over again, which I mean is not a bad thing, you know. Like I mean, it is what it is, but I think it's gonna be interesting. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of money. I think it's like $120 million to spend, and they got their quarterback Drake May, but they have a lot of holes on that roster. So I do not expect them to make a run next year. Kind of like the Commanders, I don't expect that. Could happen, but I mean the Commanders spent quite a bit in free agency getting some under the radar guys, so maybe depends on how much they're willing to spend. But I like this hire. But I think they're just still trying to chase the Belichick, and I think they should just, they gotta move on from that because I mean the past is the past. But I like this hire. Next, the Jets. I love Aaron Glenn. Um, if you watch his interview, it was one of the best ones I've ever seen. He just seems like such a football guy, such a good dude, such a good coach. Um, but I don't know how well he's going to do because I feel like we've seen this kind of guy before, defensive coordinator who comes in. But I think at the very least, they're going to have a great culture. At the very least, I think they're going to be an outstandingly coached team. But obviously, they don't got a quarterback anymore. Rodgers is leaving. That was a report that came out not too long ago. So I mean, Woody Johnson's not a great owner. I mean, they're not going to win. They're the Jets. A lot of bad things with that team, but I think this is a step in the right direction for the Jets. I really do. I think this is great. I just like Glenn. I'm telling you, go watch his press conference, his opening press conference. It was outstanding. And I'm excited to see if the Jets can do anything. But yeah, I like this hire a lot. Jacksonville Jaguars hire Liam Cohen. And I think it can be summed up perfectly. I don't know if you guys saw in his press conference, but the Duval that he did, that was the most cringeworthy, horrible moment in a press conference, maybe of all time, in my opinion. It was bad. He should never do that again. Um, yeah, I mean that might sum up his entire coaching tenure right there. And we haven't even seen it yet. So I I don't hate this. The situation between him and the Jags or him and the Bucks definitely went down a little weird. I'm not sure if that's a red flag or not, but kind of like you didn't tell him you were gonna go to the Buccaneers after, like I don't know. The whole situation's weird. He didn't tell him he was going back for an interview or something. I don't know. But they're pairing him with a new GM. So it'll be interesting if they can. He had some great work with Baker Mayfield, turning him around a little bit. Obviously, Canales did that before him, but last year I think a lot of people thought, oh well, Mayfield may not be as good with a new coordinator, but Liam Cohen did a great job, led a great offense. So we'll see if he can do the same with Trevor Lawrence, who they gotta turn this ship around with him because he's fallen off a cliff quickly. So I think it could be interesting how this turns out, but I think it's like a middle of the road hire. Not my favorite. Seems like a good guy, but kind of awkward. I don't know how well he's going to lead a team, but we'll see how it goes. So yeah, kind of middle of the road here. Next, New Orleans Saints, Kellen Moore. Boise State guy, quarterback for Boise State back in the day. So I automatically like him for that. But I think Kellen Moore is one of the underrated offensive coordinators. I mean, he's led a great offense everywhere he's gone. And I'm shocked he didn't go to the Cowboys because he had been there before as their offensive coordinator. We'll get to the Cowboys next, but I think this is a good hire for the Saints. I like it. But I mean, obviously, they have a bad, bad, bad roster and a lot of cap problems. There's a difference between the Raiders and the Patriots who have a bad roster and a lot of cap space, and the Saints who have a bad roster and I mean, theirs isn't as bad as the Patriots, but it's not good, and they have a lot of cap problems because they've kicked the can down the road for the past 10 years, it feels like. So it's going to be interesting how this one plays out, but I like the Kellen Moore hire. I think he'll be able to at least lead a decent offense, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see how he does in the NFL as a coach. And last, but certainly not least, is the Dallas Cowboys, who, I mean, I don't even know what they're doing. I mean, it's just it's a joke at this point. Jerry's just he is so in-house. He will never spend on free agents. He will only spend on guys that he drafted. It's just outstanding. And now they only bring in a head coach who has been with their team for a while. And they won't go out there, they won't pursue anybody else. It's embarrassing. For if you're a Cowboys fan, I mean, it's a circus. I mean, I don't even know where you go after this, but Brian Schottenheimer is the new head coach, and maybe I'm totally wrong on this. Maybe he's a great coach. Who knows? But like, I think it's just a bad message to your fans that you don't even want to try to get anybody else. Like, it's such a joke. And yeah, like I said, maybe it works, but at the end of the day, it's a message of just unserious proportions to the fans, like that we don't want to win. And it's just a joke at this point. And I guarantee they won't spend in the offseason, and they're going to have a bad draft. The Cowboys are a joke right now, and there's no other way to put it. So that's all I have to say about that. But let's move on to some of the trade rumors. I think the biggest one so far has been Myles Garrett, who requested a trade out of Cleveland. And please, Brian Gutekunst of the Green Bay Packers, please, please, please trade for this man. I would love you so much because this is exactly what the Packers need. But so do numerous other teams. I saw things like, you think Howie Roseman isn't going to try to trade for this guy? Imagine him on the Eagles. I mean, they're going back to back, no doubt. So he's there. I think the consensus is kind of like maybe one first round pick and a player or something like that. I've seen like a second and a third. I think it at least cost a first round pick for this guy. This guy's a Hall of Famer. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets traded, because I know the Browns don't want to trade him. So we'll see about that. I think really I've heard Deebo Samuel wants a trade, but I'm not sure how much like who's going to want to trade for him. He seems kind of like a slower player. Injuries, I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of Deebo Samuel's game. Seems kind of like a one-trick pony. A big one too was Matthew Stafford, who has been linked to the Giants, which I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not sure why the Giants would make this trade. Stafford needs to go, if he's going to get traded, he needs to go to a team that can win now. It makes no sense for him to go to the Giants. Their roster is not close to competing for a ring. But a lot of teams that are competing for a ring don't need a quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I know the Rams, I think, he'll probably just end up with the Rams, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. And I've heard that Aaron Rodgers might go to the Rams if they do end up trading him, which could be really interesting. Aaron Rodgers' market is kind of weird too. I'm not really sure who's going to want to sign Aaron Rodgers, but you never know. I mean, maybe. So it'll be interesting to see how the quarterbacks move. But yeah, Stafford, I think he'll just end up staying with the Rams. But I don't know. I just don't see the Giants comp there. I think the Giants will draft the guy. And if they don't, they'll just ride with somebody in the later rounds. Yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be dumb for them to trade for Stafford. Makes no sense to me. But anyway, that's pretty much all I've heard for like the trade rumors. I'm sure there's others, but those are kind of the notable ones that I've heard about. But in free agency, I think like the biggest free agent, probably the consensus, is T. Higgins. He hasn't been signed yet. Who knows if he will be signed? Because I mean, I there was a report that they want to pay Jamar Chase like the highest non QB contract, which is just insane. They should have just paid him last offseason. The Bengals are another clown show of an organization. Um, uh, their just refusal to pay some players, but they want to pay Jamar Chase the most. I mean, he's Jamar Chase, so obviously, but it's like, why didn't you just pay him last offseason when you could have got him for like 35, 30? Now you're going to pay him like 40 plus. It's outrageous. I don't believe any wide receiver is worth that much, in my opinion. I think you can get away with drafting some guys and running some guys on some rookie contracts, to be honest. But that's just me. But I don't know. I just really this makes no sense. So it'll be interesting to see if I know they want to keep T Higgins, but I mean, I know they have a lot of cap space, but I don't think you can paying two wide receivers that much is a gamble. Because you can't, but if you do that, you got to draft well, because then you can't really pair very many other high paid players around them. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. Trey Smith for the Chiefs. I know a lot of Bears fans want him. It'll be interesting to see if Kansas City can afford to pay him. Kansas City has a lot of questions too this offseason. Is Kelsey going to retire? I think wide receivers are a bit of a problem on their team. Stuff like that, Trey Smith, is he going to leave? What's the offensive line going to look like? It's already pretty weak, except for the interior. Going to be interesting to see what Kansas City does to shift into this next kind of era of the Mahomes run here, the dynasty. So the Patriots were able to do it. Can Kansas City? Patriots were consistently able to pair great players along with Brady. So we'll see if Kansas City can do that. The Eagles have a few free agents: Milton Williams, Zach Bond. I think Bond will be back. You don't let an All-Pro go like that. Milton Williams, I think Milton Williams might be gone. Their offensive line's or their defensive line's pretty stacked anyway, so I think Milton Williams probably gone. He's a great pass rusher. Can't run defend to save his life, but he's a great pass rusher. But he had an outstanding Super Bowl, so you never know. Sam Darnold, like I said, who knows what happens to Sam Darnold? Who knows if this was just a fluke of a season? I know O'Connell in Minnesota runs a great scheme over there. Could that be it? Maybe. I feel like Minnesota has had a pretty good run of getting these journeyman quarterbacks and turning him into pretty good players. So I think it'd be interesting to see. I don't really know where Darnold goes. If he goes back to Minnesota, maybe. It'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. You have Chris Godwin coming off an ankle injury. He was having a great season beforehand. So, does a team like Kansas City or someone else pay him? Who knows? That could be interesting. Not a lot of... It's kind of an underrated free agency class. Nothing like last year with the running backs that we saw. Nothing like that. So I think free agency is one of those harder things to predict. A lot of the times, the teams that have a lot of money and the bad teams will overpay for guys. I think that's what's going to happen with guys like T. Higgins, Trey Smith, stuff like that. I think T. Higgins would be a great spot, or great player for the Patriots to pair with Drake May. You got to get him weapons immediately. So I think that could be something to watch. T. Higgins to the Patriots. But it's so hard to predict. I don't really know where this is going to go. I'm just excited to see how it plays out. As a Packers fan, I don't expect us to get involved in free agency at all. We got some money, but none of these guys really interest me too much. I'd rather just go out, spend some capital to trade for Myles Garrett, to be honest. At the end of the day, I know the Packers need some edge rusher help. And I think like Hassan Reddick's in here. Khalil Mack, I think they could trade for him. He might be a free agent. So, there's some players, but there's no like big names this year. Anytime Sam Darnold is the sixth best free agent, it's kind of an indication why of the class in itself. But I think this should be an interesting offseason. I think no doubt the best team going into next year is going to be the Eagles, just roster wise. So I'm excited to see how it plays out. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. We'll be coming out with some more content. Probably NBA, NHL, playoffs looming closer. So we'll talk about that stuff. Obviously, all the NFL stuff that's coming up. Baseball is starting soon. I think spring training just started, so baseball's starting soon. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.